Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Jade Dynasty Season 3 based on novel. So let's start. Majestic Fox Mountain, ice-cold stone room. Ghostly quietly looked at Bai Yao lying serenely on the ice stone platform, the women in slumber within the curls of the white mist, the corner of her mouth always seemed to be smiling. At this moment, does she still have feelings? Does she know someone is beside her protecting her? Or to say, in her heart, she had never regretted and so therefore she looked so serene while sleeping. As for these, Ghostly had asked himself numerous times, he never knew the answer, and did not dare to think about it, just that every time he thought of it, he seemed to receive another degree of suffering. However, his body right now was getting worse, although because he had practiced 3 volumes of the Tianshu True Way, these few days he had came to realize that the true ways of Buddha, Taoism, evil had a way to merge together. His skills improved as the days went by, but sinister orbs evil power seemed to be circulating in his body every day, like a pestering spirit, waiting for the final moment to perish with him. That ice-cold feeling, Ghostly had long been familiar with it, ever since from his youth until now, it had always accompanied him. Even if he was to die, he probably would feel the cold like that and die. He gave a wry smile, finally glanced at Bai Yao. This was the 3rd day he was guarding Bai Yao alone. You have a good rest for a while. I will come back soon to see you. Ghostly gently said, don't be afraid, your father and I are just temporarily away. Even if I were to die, I will still come back to see you before I die. He looked at Bai Yao, smiled gently and then turned and walked out of the stone room. The light white mist floated, like a veil behind him. Rumble. The heavy stone door slowly closed behind him. Xiao Hui, who was long awaiting at a side, jumped up his shoulder. Ghostly's hand gently smoothed Xiao Hui's head, nodded his head and then walked all the way out. Along the way he would either reach out to the wall corners, or after passing through a number of turns activated the traps. The layers of mechanisms in Majestic Fox Mountain Ghost King sect headquarters were all set, just the heavy stone doors. There were already more than 10 closing down. In the Majestic Fox Mountain right now, everywhere was the sounds of traps activating, but there was only one human silhouette, Ghostly. The others had long at 3 days ago, followed Ghost King into the Wildlands Holy Temple. The Majestic Fox Mountain right now was empty and lonely. Ghostly walked out of the mountain body, when the sun shone onto his body bringing a trace of warmth, he could not help but shivered. Rumbling, the last stone door slowly closed, covering up this huge mountain body. Within it Ghostly heard vague sounds of pa-ta, and knew that it was the sound of the trap setting in place. In the future, if somebody, who do not know how to activate the mechanism, and wistfully intent to force his way in through this more than 1,000 jin rock, then he would need skills like a celestial being in order to do so. The warm sun shone onto his body. Xiao Hui lying on his shoulder stretched out both of its arms, stretching itself, its mouth yawned. Ghostly turned to it, smiled slightly. Why, looking so bored and sleepy? Xiao Hui, Gigi, called twice, its monkey face showing the whites of its eyes. Then it gestured and danced, kept pointing to outside of the mountain. Ghostly smiled and said, so you are bored, oh, the surroundings here are desolate, not even a few trees, no wonder you feel uncomfortable. Xiao Hui immediately nodded earnestly, jumped down from Ghostly's shoulder, Gigi calling, gesturing with his limbs. Ghostly inhaled deeply, turned to look back at Majestic Fox Mountain, which had by now already merged with the mountain as one. No visible traces of the entrance could be seen, nodded his head and said, well, anyway, we have to wait a month before going in to visit Bai Yao. Taking this time, let's take a walk around here. Xiao Hui rejoiced, bounced on the ground, grinning broadly. Ghostly was infected by its mood. His mood lightened, laughed and scolded, all right, still not coming up, if not you stay here by yourself. Xiao Hui's head shrank, suoed a sound and again up on Ghostly's shoulder, he's smiling. Ghostly shook his head, a smile on his lips too, his hands moved, a familiar coldness surfaced again. Ghostly seemed to think of something, hesitated for a moment. Xiao Hui feeling puzzled, Gigi twice. Ghostly turned to look at it, then faintly smiled, softly said, life is lonely, why bother to think so much? Xiao Hui's eyes blinked twice, apparently it did not quite understand the words. Ghostly did not say anything more. a flip of his hand, dark green light glowed, the soul-absorbing stick appeared, carrying them a monkey and a human, straight up to the blue sky, leaving majestic Fox Mountain. XXX. The most populated place on majestic Fox Mountain was a small town 200 miles northeast, called Three Fortune Town. Three Fortune Town population was not much. But there were a few villages around, and so reluctantly, it could also be considered lively. In the past, for the sake of secrecy, the Ghost King sect never bought their food and other daily necessities from Three Fortunes Town. Instead they went to the father town to buy, to prevent the good faction, or the evil sect other factions from discovering where the headquarters was. But before the Ghost King sect disciples returned to their mountain, many of them would rest at Three Fortunes Town. In the past, Ghost Li also passed by Three Fortunes Town with Xiao Hui, although not many times, but Xiao Hui was extremely clever. It clearly remembered, right now they had just left majestic Fox Mountain. Xiao Hui, waving desperately at Ghost Li's shoulder, kept pointing to the direction of Three Fortunes Town. Apparently it wanted to go to Three Fortunes Town to eat and drink. Ghost Li shook his head, but did not say anything, turned and headed to the direction of Three Fortunes Town. A distance of 200 miles away, to the cultivated Taoist practitioners who could fly, it was not that far. Among the blue sky and white clouds, a flash of dark green light, with an indistinct black energy, streaked across the sky. Xiao Hui crouched restlessly on his shoulder, at times tilting its head, its long tail swayed to and fro, wondered was it that it was anticipating the moment of savoring the delicacies. Ghost Li, while wielding the soul-absorbing stick, gazed downwards. The area around majestic Fox Mountain needed nothing more to say, a stretch of desolate bare mountains. After leaving majestic Fox Mountain range, the terrain was relatively flat, but the wilderness, it was the same with no signs of inhabitation. Looking down, only a desolate path in the wilderness lonely extended out, wondered where it leads to. Ghost Li suddenly sighed, but did not say anything. Only Xiao Hui was slightly weird, took a few more glances at its master. After flying less than 1 hour in the direction of northeast, they have already reached the tip of Three Fortunes Town. From far clusters of houses could be seen. Xiao Hui was already excited, Jijiu calling, pointing down. Ghost Li smiled and said, "All right, we will go down." The dark green light flashed. A sharp sigh sound was heard in the sky, descending from the sky, landed on the streets of Three Fortunes Town. However, once he landed, Ghost Li frowned. Xiao Hui jumped down from his shoulder, scratched its head, obviously feeling bewildered. After a moment, as if it had sensed something, its 3 eyes lit up at the same time, Jijiu calling, looking slightly nervous. The Three Fortunes Town in front of them looked as if it had turned into an empty town. Most of the surrounding housing was still intact. Only a few spots looked damaged, but the entire town of people had completely disappeared. The deathly silence shrouded above this small town. Ghost Li snorted, comprehended in his heart. Needless to say, the place's appearance here most likely was due to the demon beast's catastrophe. The people in the town might have escaped in time to the north. If they were slower, most probably they could not avoid the fate of being food for the beasts. A proper small town, and yet turned into this state. And thinking further, on the divine land right now, how many towns had this similar fate too? A wind was blowing from a distance, disturbing up some sand from the streets. In this warm day, the wind seemed to be cold. Xiao Hui seemed to be uneasy, went near Ghost Li, at the same time glancing around. Ghost Li bent over, picked up Xiao Hui, muttered, "It's nothing." Xiao Hui's eyes blinked, seemed to quieten down with Ghost Li beside. Ghost Li breathed deeply, slowly walked forward. Xiao Hui crawled to his shoulder and no longer made any noise, quietly looked around. The town, other than the sound of the wind, was silent. Ghost Li walked forward, after walked half of the street, saw the doors and windows of various households were shut tightly, but some had their doors opened, not sure if it was the demon beast who had barged in. Only that along the way, they did not see any corpse. Seemed like the commoners here had ran to the north when they heard the news. At this time, suddenly a burst of cold wind, a dangling door on the left side of the street with a pong sound dropped down, echoed in the empty street. Ghost Li and Xiao Hui turned around and looked at the same time, saw behind the door, an arm fell weakly on the wooden board, unmoving, at the same time a faint smell of blood in the air. Ghost Li quietly looked for that direction for a while, then turned and continued to walk forward. Xiao Hui instead kept turning back to look at that arm. In the past Ghost Li had came to Three Fortunes town a few times, therefore he was quite familiar with the place. He slowly walked, was silent for a long time and then said, I remember there is a tavern ahead, let's go there, maybe we can still find something for you to eat. Xiao Hui, Ji, called out twice. Footsteps sounded on the street, seemed especially loud, the cold wind blowing in gusts from behind. Very quickly, walking along the street, they came to the tavern. The sign of the tavern had fallen from the door, landing face front on the entrance, covered with a layer of dust. Ghost Li glanced at this wooden board, stepped on it, leaving a footprint behind. Suddenly, Xiao Hui quietly called out, stared into the tavern. Ghost Li's body suddenly stopped. After a while, a deep roar was heard from the tavern. Was it demon beast? This was Ghost Li's first reaction, but this roar sounded slightly familiar. Roar! Xiao Hui suddenly shrieked, scurried into the tavern. Ghost Li was taken aback, did not know the reason for its agitation, but Xiao Hui had always been close to him, and could be said to be his only partner. No matter how, he could not allow Xiao Hui to face the mysterious thing alone. Watching Xiao Hui soon disappearing into the tavern, Ghost Li's countenance changed, his body moved, he was already chasing after it. The next moment, he was in the tavern. After he took a good look at the thing inside the tavern, he could not help but was shocked. The tavern was in a mess, pots and pans were everywhere, broken pieces piling up, the tables and chairs were also in a disarray. A few were still intact, a thick layer of dust could be seen on the tables. But in such a dilapidated pub, there was a perfect table in the middle, a pot of wine and a few glasses were placed on it. Sitting next to it was a young man dressed in bright silk clothing, and on the empty space between he and Ghost Li, a monster and Xiao Hui was facing each other. Its looks ferocious and terrible, in its deep roars it had a slight trace of surprise. It was the evil beast Dao Tai. It was that day in the barren hills and deep forests, that mysterious boy that Ghost Li met. Dao Tai stretched its long neck, staring with its 4 huge eyes, staring at Xiao Hui, but Xiao Hui's expression was not as tense as before, instead it looked happy. Ji called out twice, grinning, slowly walked up, wanted to touch Dao Tai's head. Dao Tai growled once, apparently unused to Xiao Hui's action. Xiao Hui paused, its 3 eyes blinked, went around Dao Tai's body twice, from the left to the right, and from the right to the left. Dao Tai's long neck turned, followed Xiao Hui's body, making a few growls, but it sounded not as hostile. Obviously towards this 3-eyed monkey, Dao Tai had some good feelings, just that not sure if it was because it had met a greedy guy like it, which was rare, and therefore looking at it with a different look. By then that youth also saw Ghost Li, remained seated, but his expression also looked startled. Evidently he did not expect to meet Ghost Li here. But his expression soon resumed, smiled and nodded to Ghost Li. Ghost Li was not any less surprised and had more doubts on this young man's identity. To be able to appear in this dead town's tavern, without asking, this person's origin, could be deduced, extremely strange. At this time Xiao Hui had already went near Dao Tai, suddenly opened its mouth and laughed, stretched its hand to explore, patted a few times on Dao Tai's head. Dao Tai made a low growl, its 4 eyes staring at Xiao Hui, looking ferocious, but Xiao Hui looked not a bit afraid, instead was amused, patted a few more times, made a strange and a funny pu sound. Dao Tai seemed helpless against the monkey, made a snort and lay down, no longer minding Xiao Hui. Xiao Hui seemed to like this strange monster, went near Dao Tai and touched here and there, extremely affection. That mysterious youth looked away from the 2 spiritual beasts, looked at Ghost Li, smiled and said, seems like they really got along well. Ghost Li nodded and smiled too. The young man patted the chair next to him, said, actually we can be considered quite fated, the heavens and earth are so huge and we actually meet here. Brother, why don't you come over here and sit, let's drink a cup and also chat a bit. Ghost Li glanced at Xiao Hui and Dao Tai, saw that Xiao Hui's attention was all on Dao Tai, said, all right, and walked slowly over but to another side and took a chair, sat at the other side of the table. That young handsome face had a faint smile, reached for a clean cup, placed before Ghost Li, then filled it up with wine, smiled and said, brother came to this deserted town, wonder what it is for. Ghost Li did not answer, looked at the young man, quietly said, then what are you here for? The young man smiled and said, I passed by here and discovered that it still has a few glasses of wine remaining, and so rested here for a moment, enjoying the wine by myself. Ghostly turned to look at Xiao Hui, said, if I said I was also bringing this monkey to look for wine here, do you believe it? That young man was surprised, looked at Xiao Hui, suddenly laughed out, clapped his hands, said, believe, why not? Come, you and I drink up, life is lonely, it is rare that there is still a person with affinity, in the desolated secluded corner of the ends of the earth, looking for wine together. Having said that, he raised his glass to Ghostly and then drained it. Ghostly looked at him intently, slowly repeating the words, life is lonely, life is lonely. He suddenly laughed out, that laugh was full of vicissitudes of life, raised his glass and downed it. A fire-like taste of wine, from his throat straight to his abdomen, the wine on this desolate town, was actually this strong. The young man laughed, how is it? Ghostly looked up, reached over for the wine jug, filled up the 2 glasses, said, good wine. The young man smiled deeper, slapped the table, laughed and said, good, it is really a good wine. In his laughter, the young man's expression gradually looked excited, suddenly loudly recited. The past feelings, vicissitudes of life. Do you still remember, the broken-hearted person? White hair, withered lamp going to the ends of the earth. A reign of loneliness for hangover. Until the end, his voice gradually turned desolate, his face also somewhat looked lonely. After he finished, he looked down and was quiet. Ghostly quietly looked at him, downed the glass of wine before him. XXX. Night, the cold wind gradually picked up, the lonely town made woo-woo sounds, like someone quietly crying in the distant. The night was dark, black like dark waves, swallowing the great earth. The monkey fell asleep on Dao Tai's body, and that ferocious animal at the moment was also lazily lying on the ground. In the tavern, everywhere was dark. Ghostly and the young man sat in the darkness. No one had the intention to get up and look for the candle. Perhaps in the dark, they seemed to be more comfortable. All day long, they sat face to face like that, occasionally exchanged a few irrelevant conversations, occasionally drank a few glasses of wine, and most of the time, seemed like they brought up each other's past, remained silent, contemplating their past. In such a cold night, in the desolate corners of the ends of the earth, 2 strangers seemed like they have known each other for their whole life, indifferently getting along. Morning, it was another new day. At the 3 Fortunes town entrance, Ghostly stood face to face with that young man, Xiao Hui on his shoulder, the evil beast Dao Tai followed behind the young man, a bored expression on its face. The young man glanced at Ghostly, smiled and said, what a rare opportunity for us to meet. After today, we do not know when we will see each other again, brother, do take care. Ghostly lightly said, you too. The young man seemed to recall something, said, now that the world is in chaos and the situation in the north seems to be getting more tense, don't you intend to go up north to take a look at the fun? Ghostly, slightly surprised, could not help but take another glance at the young man, saw his composed expression without any subtle meaning, pondered for a moment and said, I'll see first. Why, are you interested in those killings and fights too? The young man smiled but did not answer, only cupped his hands together, said, the roads to the ends of the world are long, the world is filled with hardships and dangers, let's meet again, if we are destined to. Ghostly returned the gesture, said, yes. The young man laughed and turned away. Dao Tai made a low growl, it seemed to be informing Xiao Hui too, and then followed along. Crouching on Ghostly's shoulder, Xiao Hui seemed reluctant, called out a few times at Dao Tai's back figure. In a short while, that mysterious young man and Dao Tai's figures disappeared. Ghostly looked at the direction where they had gone, was silent for a moment and then slowly turned around, the silent 3 Fortunes town before him, not a single sign of life. Xiao Hui clicked its tongue twice, grabbed that wine bag on its back and drank 2 mouthfuls. Last night from the tavern's cellar, this monkey actually again found some alcohol. Let's go, Xiao Hui. Ghostly suddenly calmly spoke. Xiao Hui, Gigi, called out twice, its monkey hand fiddling with Ghostly's hair. Ghostly gazed far into the distant, after a long time, quietly said, over there, was where we had once lived together, do you still remember? The monkey did not answer, nobody knew if it understood, just that on this completely cold deserted street, a cold wind seemed to blow past. Qingyun Hill, Big Bamboo Valley. The head of Qingyun Hill Big Bamboo Valley, Qian Bu Yi, at the moment was alone in observed silence hall with his hands clasped behind his back, pacing back and forth. His mood was extremely foul, faint traces of anger showing on his face and with a hint of irritability. His kind and understanding wife, Sua Yu, at the moment was not in the valley and instead had went over to Small Bamboo Valley Shuiyu Master there. As for his disciples, who had always been respectful to him, saw his mood and had long avoided the place, the only disciple who could still put in a word most of the time, Song Daran the eldest disciple, at the moment also could not be seen. Tian Bu Yi knew the reason. Now that the world's catastrophe had arrived, nobody knew when those horrible demon beasts would attack. He, as one of the leaders of Qingyun sect, naturally was troubled over it. But it was also because of this, after repeated persuasion from his wife Sua Yu, for his disciple Song Daran's happiness, Qian Bu Yi finally at 3 days ago made a trip to Small Bamboo Valley to propose marriage for Song Daran and when minute. Unexpectedly, Shuiyu Master, like she had swallowed some gunpowder, exploded at one go, even disregarding Sua Yu who was there, not to mention her distressed disciple Wen Minute who was beside, immediately rejected and coldly, sarcastically mocked Qian Bu Yi. With Qian Bu Yi's temperament, how would he not be angered? There and then had an altercation with Shuiyu Master and almost came to a fight. In the end, Sua Yu barely pulled him back to Big Bamboo Valley and Shuiyu Master was also stopped by her group of disciples who kneeled and held her back. After the commotion, Song Daran was naturally extremely depressed, a look of dejection, all day long his face was like a bitter gourd. Tian Bu Yi, who was already in a foul mood, saw his expression, and was even more infuriated, scolded him in succession several times, said that so what if he did not have a wife, he just has to devote himself to cultivation, in the future, who knows maybe he would instead have blessings in disguise etc. Song Daran naturally did not dare to contradict his mentor, but although his mouth was answering obediently, his disapproval expression was written on his face, clearly he was still thinking of Wen Minute. Tian Bu Yi was even angrier upon seeing it, scolded him even more harshly, until in the end Song Daran, like a mouse terrified of a cat, hid here and there the whole day, did not dare to see his teacher again. This day Sua Yu left early, specifically told Tian Bu Yi to go Small Bamboo Valley himself to persuade Shuiyu Master. Tian Bu Yi snorted a few times, coldly made some snide remarks about Shuiyu Master. Sua Yu ignored him, went off straight, leaving Tian Bu Yi to fume by himself. However, before she left, Sua Yu privately spoke a few words with Tian Bu Yi, and made him understood somehow the reason why Shuiyu that woman was so unreasonable that day. Sua Yu actually said it very simply, only said, I heard that the day before we went over, that is the day when Lu Shuiqi returned, Shuiyu's senior sister summoned her alone and they talked for quite a while. In the end, for some reason, not only Lu Shuiqi was reprimanded heavily, even the other disciples were also admonished. Tian Bu Yi might looked stiff, but he was definitely not a slow person. After a moment he comprehended the reason behind it, but just that after Sua Yu left, each time he recalled himself going over by his own volition, and being insulted, he really could not take it down and fumed with anger. The observed silence hall right now was silent. Only the sounds of Tian Bu Yi's pacing footsteps, his expression too slowly changed with his movements, for some reason, in the end, his expression turned rather odd, as if he had recalled some things. The incident where Lu Shuiqi rejected the marriage proposal in Tongtian Peak, he was aware of it, and the rumors regarding the most outstanding disciple of the younger generation, Lu Shuiqi, Tian Bu Yi, had also heard about it. Just that his concern deep inside his heart was the other person in those rumors. 10 years already. He sighed softly, looking distracted. Sometimes even he himself felt a little strange. The disciple who looked so unremarkable, what exactly was the reason that made himself worried for so many years? Tian Bu Yi made a bitter laugh, shook his head, at this moment, as if he suddenly sensed it, frowned and looked out of the observed silence hall. In the distance a tearing sound from the sky was heard. Tian Bu Yi contemplated for a moment, composed himself and walked out. A white light was only seen streaking past the sky above Big Bamboo Valley, as fast as lightning, directly headed for the summit of Big Bamboo Valley, landed 6 feet in front of Tian Bu Yi. The brilliant dazzling light wavered and dissipated, revealing Qingyun sect Tongqian Peak Xiao Yi Cai. Xiao Yi Cai turned, a smile on his face, cupped his hands together and said, "Greetings to Qian teacher uncle." Qian Bu Yi nodded and said, why did you come, is something up?" Xiao Yi Cai smiled and nodded, but following which he looked around, feeling slightly surprised, said, "Qian teacher uncle, why is it so deserted here? Where are your other disciples? Why are they not here?" Qian Bu Yi thought in his heart, "If you can see them then you must be seeing ghosts, one by one hiding off somewhere." But his expression was nothing like that, indifferently said, "They are all doing their homework, so did not come out. Here is unlike your Tongtian Peak, crowded with people, it is common not to see anyone around." Xiao Yi Cai was stunned, he could hear that Qian Bu Yi seemed unhappy, but he was shrewd enough and appeared not to notice, smiled and said, "Oh, so that's the reason. Qian teacher uncle, disciple is here today, because my benevolent teacher tasked me to come and pay a visit to teacher uncle. There are some questions to seek your guidance on." Qian Bu Yi frowned and was nonplussed, asked in surprise, "Seek guidance from me, what guidance?" "Senior brother Dao Xian is celestial pedant with unequaled merit good fortune. What is there to ask this good-for-nothing junior brother?" Xiao Yi Cai smiled, but did not speak, only looked at Qian Bu Yi. Qian Bu Yi understood and said, "Then let's go in and speak." After speaking, he turned and was about to head into the observed silence hall, Xiao Yi Cai following behind him. Suddenly Qian Bu Yi paused, abruptly turned around, but it was towards the direction of his disciples' residences. Xiao Yi Cai felt puzzled and also glanced towards that direction, but did not see anything, could not help, but asked, "What is it, Qian teacher uncle?" Qian Bu Yi hesitated for a moment, shook his head and said, "Nothing. I must have seen wrongly." How could he? He suddenly coughed, lightly said, "Let's go in and talk." Part 1 end here.